Hey, you guys, thanks so much for joining me for this episode of Overheard. These are some of my most fun episodes, a little more loosey goosey here than the typical conversations. So, thank you for joining me. And I'd like each of you to just say hello, tell us a tiny bit about your business. So, anybody who might not know who you are, which I'm not sure there's anybody out there that doesn't, but at least we'll have a little background. So, Antonio, start us off, please.
Hey everyone, Luann, I can't thank you enough for having me on the Overheard Talk today. I'm excited to kind of do this little roundtable. I'm Antonio DeLoatch. We've been in business here for 10 years, which is wild to say. We're a full frame to finish design firm. And for me, I genuinely feel like we're curating a home that is serving you so that you can better go out and serve the world. And we're located here in New York City.
Love it. Love it. Robin?
So, thank you, Luann, and it's great here to be with you, Antonio, and Sandra as well. I am Robin Burrill. I am located in Keller, Texas, and for those of you that don't know, it's north of Fort Worth. And I have been a designer for 39 years, and I started when I was 2. So, yeah, so next year we will have been in business for 30 years, and we basically take care of the entire home design, build from renovations, interiors, and also handyman services.
Yeah, you got some kind of a crazy, so many services in your business.
Full,
It's
full
outstanding.
one-stop
Yeah.
shop over at Robin.
Outstanding. Yeah, 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 yeah. And Sandra?
Amazing. Thank you so much for having me. I am so excited to be a part of this. I am Sandra Funk. I am a luxury interior designer for over 20 years, turned business strategist, and founder of the Interior Design Standard, which is my business template for interior designers.
Love it. Love it. Okay, so guys, we're just going to go right to it. The whole point of Overheard is to, for the most part, pick a question apart and really get into it and just have this organic sort of conversation around it. And so the question that we're going to start with is the topic today is obviously resilience. And resilience, we know as CEOs that we have to be resilient, and that shows up in many ways. It shows up in day to day operations, it shows up in family life, it shows up in employee interactions, it shows up in vendor interactions, and God knows it shows up in client interactions. So, I'm not going to put any one of you into a box into the way that you would like to speak to your colleagues listening about the importance of resilience and how you tap in to your own individual resilience in order to run your firms. So, the first question that I'd like you to each consider is there a moment, any moment, big or small, that you can go to in your business that you actually had to dig down and go into that well of resilience for yourself? And it was it successful? Was it, what, did you come out on top, or did it take five times to do it? But like, is what's a moment that one of you would like to discuss where you can really express that idea and concept to us? Who wants to go first?
I can go first on that. There have been more than one, in the time that my husband and I have been together, there have been a lot. But I would say the most defining moment was cancer. And it wasn't just me being diagnosed with cancer, but the following year, my mother was diagnosed with breast cancer as well. And the following year, my father was diagnosed with prostate cancer. And in the middle of all of this, at the same time that just before my mom was diagnosed with breast cancer, my husband also almost lost his colon. And because he has ulcerative colitis. So I can tell you that health problems are a serious resiliency in your business. And it
Exercisement,
just
yeah.
is not just about your health, but you're basically staring, death in the face. And the main thing that got me through it was my team, my circle, my friends, and the fact that I was so open about my journey and the journey of my family. I mean, my family really and truly didn't care that I shared what was going on. Um, but the outpouring of care and love was so incredible. And this is my 10th year of being cancer free. And I've
Yay.
been, and
Yay.
thank you. And I've been sharing my journey of what it was like back then because it was, I'm getting goosebumps now thinking about it. But it was so pivotal for all of us. It was the worst and the best thing that ever happened to us. And yeah, Lou, you want to ask a question?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, think about this. You, your mom, and your dad, and your husband, all with major health crisis within months of each. Like, that's beyond comprehension, right? And so, what I'm hearing in there, Robin, it's interesting because you're saying that one of the mechanisms that ended up being critical in helping you get through it was the fact that you went public to the design industry with it, that you said this is happening, right? Because I don't know that I guess I probably would because I would have to be away from the podcast or something, right? But without that, I'm like, and I think about the 40 years running Window Works. I don't know that I would have come out and said to everybody, hey, this is what's going on. And I recognizing that for someone listening, that it's not there's a benefit to it that you don't even expect is what you saying, right? That ended up being a source of strength and comfort for you with people being able to help you, right?
Yes, because I even took over the presidency of ASID Texas in the middle of my
Because why not?
chemo.
Because why not?
Well, and then we also got 2 new puppies as well. So I mean,
Everything is fine over here. Nothing's happening. Everything's
I
fine.
mean, yeah, I'm just nuts. But it was, you can't stop life. It's, and Lou, we've had conversations about mental illness, and you really and truly hope that mental illness is a pause. It's life interrupted, right? And it's not that hard stop. And that's basically what this was. Because I'll tell you, in 2014, we had our best business year ever.
In the mix of all of that.
Yes, but that
Wow.
was because I had been doing so much work up until then. You realize we were coming out of, the recession. We
Sure.
never lost any footing in that time. But because I took my foot off the pedal, because I was basically the one that was bringing in the sales, was out there meeting with people. Well, all of a sudden in 17, we just tanked.
Oh, see,
Well,
it
'cause
was
there's
a
such a
delayed
long
effect.
lead.
Right.
Yes.
Because
Yeah.
I was working on getting all of us healthy. I would leave in the morning and head down to Austin, which is 200 miles away, to attend doctor's appointments with my parents and come back later that
Whoa.
day. They were in their 80s. I couldn't let them go to those appointments by themselves. I mean, that doctor had to hear
Sure.
from me. And
That's right.
and so in 2018, we completely rebranded. We redid everything. And then we lost all of our employees. And I mean, we're talking a completely rebuilt. And
Wow.
so here we are today. And since then, then Lou and Sandra, was in the mastermind with you guys. And I was the only one that was saying, screw this COVID,
The Texas voice.
I was crazy busy. And I thought, this is not going to stop me. I've got too many people to feed. And
Well,
Yeah.
especially what you just came out
yeah,
of, and now you're just like, we hit the hard stop, we hit the reset button, but like, here's the blessing on the other
right.
side that now you've been given this
Yeah,
opportunity to like rebrand and restart
right. So
yourself.
now there is nothing that scares me and nothing that I cannot do. That's
Oh, I
Right.
love
that's
that.
what when I'm talking about it's the best thing that has happened to me. I seriously, if anybody wants to go jump out of a plane with me, I am there. Whereas before
Nice.
I would never have done it. I've done fire walks, I've walked across broken glass. I am not afraid of
This
snakes.
is a tough
Oh yeah,
woman.
I will do it. You name it, I am up for it one time. One time.
One time.
Just
Just one time.
once.
No one has to fire walk twice.
No, I've actually walked across fire 3 times. But
Well, there you go.
Ooh.
Sometimes you have to
yeah,
do it more than once.
but yeah, so no, I think that you have to look at the good. It is horrific going through it, right? Because
Sure.
we've all been at that point that we're thinking, "Oh shit, how are we going to make payroll?
Yes.
How are we going to make our mortgage? And in that moment, you feel like you're going to die. And I
Yeah.
did have those moments.
Yeah.
And but the next day is a new day, right? You wake up again.
So it's interesting because the thing is that we've got this year and a half of the health crisis with the four of you. And to your point, like, the pipeline is built at that point, right? So the business is running. Thinking about that, like the business is running, it's busy because that pipeline was built a year and a half and 2 years before. But you're at your worst now. You're physically at your worst. You're battling death. You're supporting parents and husband in the same battle against death. And so what's interesting is entrepreneurs, right?
Hmm.
I guess it's a kind of dichotomy there of this is the worst of times, but my business is financially healthy. So it's like, okay, it's hard to run the business now, but
Sure.
at least the business is there. I'm not worried about making payroll. It reminds me of COVID in the sense that, you know, I remember the summer of COVID when we all got busy. And now what employees won't come to work because of their beliefs on it and, whatever. Then, I have Carlos, my lead exterior installer, where we normally are selling $200,000 worth of outside products in a month. We sold $500,000 2 months in a row. He's our lead exterior installer. In August, falls off a ladder and breaks his ankle, but not a normal break that you come back from in 6 weeks. It's a compound fracture, crazy ankle break. He doesn't come back till February. And I'm like with two backed up $400,000, $500,000 months. And the guy who knows how to put all the things together is gone. And then a week later, one another installer gets COVID and the second one follows. And I'm just like, okay. And so the thing is, it's that same reminder of the dichotomy of, okay, but we're not out of business. I can't manage it
Yeah.
right now that easily, but we're not. And then what I'm thinking about, Robin, your story is now you take it the flip side. It's 2-3 years later, you're on your feet, you're feeling healthy, you've got your parents, and all of a sudden the business is
Goodness.
like, wait a minute, we have no clients. It's just, so it's like a 5 year, who are you kidding me, exercise in resilience. Not a 1 minute, not a 1 year, but it turned out to be this 5 year exercise. And yeah, I just got to get up. And Sandra, you say that all the time. It's a decision every day. Get up and decide to be the CEO again today.
Yeah, daily
Right?
courage.
Right. You
Daily
say that
courage.
all the time.
Yeah.
Crazy.
It's amazing because it's like, I think in our world, especially as entrepreneurs, like so many things can be true at the same time.
Yes.
It's like the yes and it's like, yeah, things are a little crappy over here, but things are also amazing on this side. And I feel like we're always like, yes, and that's true, but so is that.
Yeah.
And so like, how do we like ride the middle where we're sitting in the middle of like so many things are true all at the same time.
Because there's no middle, honey. It's a seesaw. It's like that pirate ship.
Just right. There is no middle.
There's no middle. There's no happy medium. It's extremes on all areas when you're doing this. Robin, one thing kept coming to mind when you were speaking. You said you can't stop life, and I disagree. I think you can't stop Robin.
You can't stop Robin. Right?
We need a hashtag, can't stop Robin.
Right.
Seriously.
And so I would just say, to kind of tie that in a bow before I move to you two guys, and not that we can't revisit Robin's story again, but when I think about a tangible business lesson from it, right? The tons of life lessons. I'm sure if you ever meet Robin at High Point or IDS event, go grab her. She's a font of information, business wise, personal wise, all the things. I'm so happy and grateful to call you a good, close friend. The thing is, it's like I heard in there, if God forbid I'm ever in that situation, and I'm like, business is good, and I'm over here dealing with whatever health it is, whether it's my health, my family's mental health. It's like, pick your head up and look, how far is your pipeline built, right? Because you had a good team to get you through it. And I'm sure it was enough mentally to deal with what you were dealing with and to oversee what they were physically handling for you. But it's like, tap the person who's building the pipeline for when I'm feeling better. Like as a designer, you've got to plan that, right? You can't, like, it's kind of reminds me of when Vin and I went through the first recession back in 93, whatever, and we almost lost the business. One of the critical mistakes that we made was waiting too long to react. It was, oh, it'll be fine. Oh, it'll be fine. Oh, it'll be fine. Oh, we're at 35 days in bills. Oh, we're at 40 days. Oh, we're in 60 days. Oh, we're in 90 days. And that doesn't happen in a minute. It happens over 6-8 months a year. Sure. And then all of a sudden we were like, holy cannoli, like, you got to go to get a job because this ain't going to happen, right? Like, Vinny had to go out and get a job. And the thing is, our lesson that we took from that was every business downturn after that, we were just like, nope. As soon as they start talking about it in the news and the media, we start cutting expenses. We start looking at, blah, 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 blah. And now we have defined steps. And so that is a defined step for me. No matter what is the crisis in your business as an interior designer, you have the existing team that can manage it. But as a designer, where the pipeline is so critical, you've got to have somebody's head up to, because if you ever went through something like that again, I guarantee you, Robin, you'd be like, okay, you're all doing a good job on the day to day, but who's out rainmaking for 2 years from now when I'm feeling better, right?
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
And
I think
very much so.
I think too, like, when, once your head is down, right? I think that to Sandra's point, life can pause, but we've got to give ourselves some grace. But I think that we're able to bounce back a little faster. It's like, I always encourage people, sure, like, if you're feeling it, feel it. Sit on the couch, have your moment. But like, you can't stay there forever, right? You have to keep your eye on the prize. And that's part of that resilience effort, right? Like, us as entrepreneurs, I think we're cut from a different cloth. And I think everyone that's listening to this episode is cut from the same cloth that we are, right? Like, we're chasing after it daily, but at the end of the day, we're still human. And, sometimes you have to hit the pause button. Sometimes you've got to do a little dance and shake it off and hit the reset button. But it's about, like, how quickly can you bounce back? Like, and sometimes it's not, you can look back and say, ooh, that one I didn't bounce back as fast. And these were the 3 results. This one I bounced back really quickly. I was able to catch it faster. And in return, like, okay, I'm still feeling the feels, but I was able to kind of shake it off a little bit easier. I was able to put some makeup on my face and do the thing, right? So I think that it's, as life keeps happening, I think sometimes you're able to pivot and bounce a little quicker or faster.
Yeah, totally. So, Sandra, you want to share I know, first of all, we know the dark night of the soul in the Atlanta airport in 2017, right? And which resulted in the interior design standard. So that was definitely a stomach punch moment for you in your business. And the question is, when was the stomach punch moment and did you rise from it? Hello, like, literally rose from it in the creation of the standard. We'll link that episode in the show notes. And it's important to hear that episode, I think, because it does show the resilience and strength of what you have gone through and what you've created, Sandra. Is there another time that you think of that would be helpful for our colleagues to hear about?
Absolutely. And there's a million examples,
Yeah.
I mean, again, we don't get 20 years into a career without a million examples
Right.
of just days where you felt like you got that punch to the gut and you had to step it up and bring it, back. And so Robin gives us massive, major life stop example. Mine are more like a day in the life, like an example that every designer has come across that is dealing with. So the one that came to mind when I was thinking of a news story that I have not told yet. So I got a call from a client, and we were at the end of a very long project, very complicated and detailed renovation, lots going on, and client was traveling a ton and really delegating most of the work to me. There was, again, I was orchestrating and overseeing a major renovation architect builder in the home, as well as landscape architect builder, like full exterior project. There was just a lot of moving parts. And I got this call from the client at the end of probably a year and a half, 2 years into the project. And they said, I just am doing my taxes, my year in review. I'm at the, looking at what I've spent this year. And again, I'm driving, I'm on the phone with this client, and she says, I want to throw up thinking about how much I've paid you in design fees.
Oh
Wow.
my God.
Right? Like punch to the gut. And I literally was like,
Pulled
can you
over.
just hold on a second? I pulled over and parked because I was like, I cannot drive while taking a punch to the gut. And we got through that conversation, and this is the services I provide. This is the agreement that we had. We were under an agreement. Right, all the things, and talked it through, got through that conversation. But that is a huge part of what, from a resilience standpoint,
Yes.
I was on my way back to the office from a client meeting, a different client, and I sat in the parking lot and had to take the deep breaths. I had to go into a space of pull your shit together, Sandra, because you're about to go in there and be the leader of this
Yes.
team, and you can't go in there a basket case.
Yeah.
I can't go in there with the punch still,
Yes.
having me bent over.
Yes.
So getting and I'm a big center yourself, meditate, do some
Take the deep breath.
mantra if you need it. But
It's a deep breath, and it's not working. It's another
Oh.
deep breath. It's not working. There's not enough deep breaths in the world for that.
Lou, and it's also having someone in your life who you can tell the real reaction to unfiltered.
Yes.
And having someone in your life, can I do all the words on this podcast?
Well, we can edit out the crazy ones. Go ahead.
All right. So I won't do all the words.
But there's moms and dads that listen with their kids in the car,
In that case, imagine
Yes,
an unfiltered
imagine all
rant.
the words.
Because I was born in Detroit and spent 20 years in New York, New Jersey. So I have all the words.
yeah,
All the
we
words.
need them all.
Just
So if
gotta
anyone
pull
needs an
vocabulary.
education on words that help you dispel frustration, then just
Yes.
call me privately.
That's it.
But having someone that you can, my sister is my sounding
person,
board,
yeah.
zero judgment, never, my husband, God love him, but he'll be like, well,
Well,
why
let me
didn't
fix it for you.
why didn't you do
You
it better from the
should've this,
start?
and
And you shouldas, and I'm like, no, I do not need you shouldas right now. I need
This is not the shoulda
I need-
conversation.
No, I need you to listen, and I need you to be okay with all of the vocabulary that's about to come out. So really get dispelling that energy, that negative energy, and sitting with it. And then my luck in life is to have people in my life like Luann, and who is at that time already a long-time friend and mentor. And I hear you because you are one of the voices in all of our heads, as you must hear all the time. What could we have done differently from the very beginning
You're
so
like,
that
"Shh,
this
thank
you,
was
Luann."
not the reaction? Wind it back.
Wind it back.
Wind it back. Go back to the beginning. How could this never have been the feeling, right? How could I have done this differently so that
Yeah.
my client doesn't want to throw up when they think about how much they've paid me?
Yeah.
So it's a big part of my pricing model. It's, to go full circle, it's a big part of my absolute requirement to have the big financial discussions before I even sign an agreement these days. Like it is, whenever I feel myself wavering on my, my new standards, I'm like, just think about the client who wants to throw up when they think about what they paid you. And that'll make you go, no, I'm going to have the hard conversation now before we dive in, not after.
Well, and I love that. You know how much I love that because, look, that hard conversation, it's hard. It's if there's $400,000 in fees in 18 months, whether you're telling them at the beginning or the end, it's still what the fees are going to be. But at the beginning, they can say, no, thank you. And if they do, see you bye. You know what I mean? And it's like, and most won't because at the beginning, it's not as charged. It's not as emotional. You can explain how 400,000 is going to add up or 100,000 or whatever it is going to add up in fees over that time. But that doesn't take away. And what I love is, for me, that's my mechanism. I don't care what it is that's gone wrong. That's my number one go-to. What could I have done differently? Because it literally changes my emotional mindset from trauma and drama to solution and action. Right? I might not be ready to execute on it, but it is impossible to wallow in fear, in vulnerability, in any emotion that doesn't necessarily serve you for a long period of time. All emotions are necessary for all of our lives. But
Sure.
like you said, Antonio, take a minute to sit in it. Don't take 5 days, girl. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
Come on, head up, let's go. Right. But the thing is, for me, I don't really like even the 5 or 10 minutes. I want to go right to, okay, process. What could I have done differently? And what's interesting is when you actually can't come up with the answer right away. Now you're like, oh, we're really lost here, right? Like I'm not even having enough perspective to see my part in this. And then that's the signal. We've got a real challenge here. We've got
Sure.
a
Yeah.
real challenge, and of course we've got to stick to finding that challenge. But the thing is, I mean, did you guys, Antonio and Robin, feel it when she said, I want to throw up? Look, like that is just I just got goosebumps again. That is just such a
It's like a
gross,
visceral response.
unkind
Yeah.
thing to say.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
I mean, honestly, like I don't know how, because I would be like, okay, let's go. Like, I mean, I don't know what I would have said in that exact moment because all the things, and I shouldn't say that. This is why I'm the CCO at WindowWorks, the Chief Complaint Officer, because I will not say all of the things that go through my mind. They all run through faster than lightning. But the thing is, the things that went through my mind, it was like, I'm sorry, grown up. You're the one who's been sending those payments. I'm sorry, grown up. You don't check in with your finance more than once a year. I'm sorry, grown up. You signed the dotted line on all this crap. I'm sorry, grown up. How about, are you happy when you come home to your house and you see everything is amazing? Like, these are the first, like, ripping through my mind. And I would have probably done the same thing. Give me a hot minute. I got another call. Because what I got to do is I got to go run it off. Like I have a trampoline outside I have a trampoline in my home. I have a trampoline at my beach house, and I have a trampoline 5 feet from this booth. And when something makes me crazy, Diana, see, I come busting out of the thing. I start jumping. I start
Gwen's
screaming.
doing backflips. Just give her a minute. Hold the phone.
And she's like, what's going on? I'm like, I'm just getting it out. I gotta be nice.
And see, immediately, Sandra, when you said that, I thought, what the bleep is her problem today? What is going on in her life that made her feel that way? And I guess, I don't know at what part in your business this is, but yeah, I would have immediately pulled over and I would have said probably the same thing you did was, can you tell me why you're feeling this way? I want to understand.
Lots. Yeah. And for me, like, can you give me a second? I need to pull over, and it gave me like just a literal
Let
deep
all
breaths.
those crazy thoughts run through and then relax.
Like where you
Crazy
hit the
thoughts.
mute button fast.
Yeah. And you're just like, and then and then and I have this, thankfully, this weird, like to me, that was an emergency.
Yeah.
but I have a very calm,
And
everything
the same way
slows
in a real
down.
emergency, exactly.
In a real emergency, everything slows down,
Yeah.
real calm. So I wasn't in the moment. I wasn't there with I wasn't there with the F-bombs and the
You're
what
right.
is
That
wrong with
hits
you
later, doesn't it? It
at
comes
all.
later. You're right.
I
In the
was
moment.
like,
Yep.
I was
Yep.
like, we need CPR.
Yep.
Like this is
Yes, she hit you that hard.
client, this is a long time contact, we need CPR, like this is an emergency.
And it's a project that you were like super proud of because you were the point person on 85% of every detail.
Yes, and that is what worked out in the end. I said, do you remember when you reached out and said, hey, I need you to take over as the point person? You need to be in charge of the contractor and the architect. You are the person. You're going to be my representative. I'm super busy ruling the world in my own ways. And then I asked you to take over the landscape architect and the exterior build as well, from a management, orchestrate, thread them all together. I said, do you remember when? Do you remember when? Do you remember when? I've been sending you invoices. We did do, budgets in the beginning. Do you remember when? Do you remember? And just carefully and calmly talked it through. But here's the funny thing. We got through it, right? From the client standpoint. Client calls me, I don't know, a year later, 6 months, I don't know, at some point later. I'm not good with like memory exactly when, and says, it's time for me to do the blah, blah, blah project and, yada, yada. And I said to her straight out, I said, I so appreciate you calling me. I really do. It really shows that we've come a long way and we got through some stuff. I said, but I just want to remind you, I don't think it's the best fit because I remember you not being comfortable with my fees.
Good for you.
And just being able, and also I remember not being comfortable with the I wanted to throw up comment.
And I remember you being a jerk to me. How about that part? I remember that part. Like you're not one of my kind whales. I've established I work with kind whales, period.
Yeah, you're a whale, but I don't know if you're kind.
Well, my price just went up, right? It's one of those conversations. Like my price was not my price yesterday. It's like now the price has just gone up.
Yeah, but for that one, there wasn't a price.
There was no price. Wow.
A lot of sleepless nights on that
I'm curious, did she, because usually a takeaway like that, they're like, I'll pay anything. I want you. Did she try and get you to take the account, or did she have enough sense to just go, this is a road I'm not going to win?
It was a very funny conversation. It was live. It wasn't like emails or anything. And it was like, oh, you're okay. All right. You're right. Like, I think it reminded her of that really difficult conversation because I think that had been like,
because
she's like, put it away. Yeah.
Even consider how much they hurt you.
Yeah. Cause she was just having a bad day and had talked to her accountant and made the phone call. Right. It wasn't sitting with her the way it sat with me in no way, shape or form. Was it as big as it was to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I have this thing where, like you were saying, Luann, you have to, process and then go through whatever that is. And I have this thing that I've learned from my coach, my mindset coach that I've been working with for over, 14 years now. And to try to see everything as energy, right? And to see everything as like, I believe that we are here to learn lessons. This is life school. And we are here to learn lessons.
I love that.
And so this client took the hit by being chosen to be the one to teach me this specific lesson. Yeah. And so when I can move it from what in the world was going on with her that day and how dare she and can she even, I can see it as like, okay, she had to bring me like an intense lesson about the importance of having that financial conversation all the way back in the beginning and then not having it once because nobody's, again, she barely remembered telling me that she wanted to throw up because that wasn't an important, significant conversation to her. So not just having one conversation, but like repeating, reminding, going back to it. But she was my lesson. Yeah. She was the bringer of the lesson. And if I can see it like that, I'm not saying when I accidentally run into her, I feel all oovy-goovy happy, but I'm
fair.
But I'm not.
Thank you so much for that lesson.
Yeah, I'm not quite at thank you, but I'm also not like super triggered, you know?
Well, you know Eileen, right? You guys all know Eileen. If
Yeah.
you were Eileen, that's exact. She would every time she saw her, she'd be like, "Oh, that's the person who taught me that lesson. Thank you for that."
Yes. I
But
can
none of us are
absolutely
the
see
mom
Eileen.
is Eileen. One of us are. I like that. None of us are.
But
I,
there'd be this little, by saying thank you for the lesson, she'd be giving him a little tiny twist.
that's the thing. Eileen would not. I would. Maybe
Right,
you
yeah,
would.
yeah, yeah. But
Eileen,
Eileen would actually not be
she
trying
lives
to
for
give her.
the joy. She's like, oh. But you know what? Both her mother and my mother did raise us to believe that the universe puts the problem in front of you until you learn the lesson from it. It will show up and manifest itself in all the different ways.
Gosh,
It'll
yes.
show up with your family. It'll show up with your employees. It'll just, and you're just like, why does this keep happening? It's like, well, hello, dummy. Like, wake up.
Right.
You're not. And that's why, just in the 1000th episode, Jude asked me, he was like, Lynn, lot rocks you. Like, I don't get it. He spent a year with me, like all this. And I was like, no, 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 no. I get rocked. But I go to this, what I just mentioned a moment ago, this mechanism of like, what could I have done differently? Because my brain is so programmed from a child that to your exact point, life is lessons. Learn the lesson, and you don't have to do this hard thing a second time, girl. Like, just pony up and face it. And you just got the lesson. But if you don't figure out the way you will do it differently the next time, the lesson's coming for you again.
Sure.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
coming for you again. So
I think
it's
there's
crazy.
also this like beauty too, right? Like when you're able to kind of like really dig deep. I'll say that again, dig deep in the lesson, right? Like that's not the cutest place to go.
Yeah.
But I think that sometimes like when you're able to like find the magic in the lesson and then still be able to push through and be your best authentic self throughout that entire process, like I think that you learn it quicker, you're able to be like better responsive, you're able to then have other people respond to you differently, and then in return to the energy part, now it's like science, right? It's like one thing causes the other. So it's like if I'm constantly digging deep to choose love, to choose joy, to choose grace, then I get a little bit of a different response. But then I'm also able to celebrate myself a little quicker and a little faster because instead of me running around the house dropping the F bombs and being like, he doesn't get it and da da da, like that's disrupting my energy, right? And I just had a moment the other morning. It was like 6:30 in the morning. My client's in Europe and new client has never had a designer before, young 35-year-old something, has like a very shallow identity of like what home truly means to him. And
Mm.
so has hired me to come up with like the solution, the systems, and to be able to give some brightness to just his day-to-day life. And now we're trying to do this virtually while I'm in his home and he's on holiday. And now, I try really hard to not share too many pictures and be like, I want you to experience it. I want the full, like, I want you to envelop yourself in that whole moment from scent to sound to like the moment you open up the door. And he insisted and kept insisting, send me pictures, show me progress, show me progress. So I was like sending teasers and he's like, no, I want details. And I'm like, oh, Jesus, like, I'm going to send you details, but you're not going to like fully get it because you've never had it before. So I had to constantly keep reminding myself that like I've got an audience that has never had this thing before, but I'm all in. I'm
Yeah.
1,000% in. And I woke up that morning to the text message that was like a punch in the gut, was like, I hate this. I'm disappointed in this. Like, I don't understand why this. And I mean, my hands went up in the air. I have not had my coffee yet, so that wasn't cute. It was like 6:30 in the morning and my fiance is looking at me like, are you okay? And I'm like, no, wait. And I was like trying so hard to pull it back and to not go there. And I allowed myself to have my moment, get quiet, and I'm like sitting in the dark making coffee, and he's like tiptoeing in. It's like, are you okay? And I'm like, I'm not okay. It's
Not
going to be
yet.
fine.
Give me a
But I
minute.
took that to fuel myself to show up and be the best version of me that afternoon, where I don't know if Antonio 5 years ago or 2 years ago would have been able to go to his house that afternoon, manage the contractors, and still deliver an amazing product.
And the thing is, to our what would you do differently going forward? Is it as simple as the hard line of you're out of town and I don't show reveals until you're in person? Is it just like, look, you know what I always say? The line is, in my experience, in my experience, this does not give us a good outcome.
Sure.
So I get you want pictures, da 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 da, but I've done this a few times. It's my highway. I've been down it, up and down it a lot. You've been up and down it, and no, we're not doing this. When you walk through the door, you're going to get the photo. So is that really the solution for this? That you have to draw the hard line, or is there a different lesson in that?
I think there was a few lessons, but I think that one was being able to say, like, you've hired me for a reason, and I have had the experience. And because we're putting so much into this thing that you want, that you desire, I think the best outcome for you to experience it in its entirety is for me to not send the photos throughout the process, right? Like a
Right.
cute teaser here or there, but I can even be stronger and not do that,
Yeah.
right? And just have that conversation, just like the hard finance conversation from the
Yeah.
beginning. It's like, hey, if you're not going to be here, let's get excited about the surprise, right?
Yeah. Now, has he since returned back to see the space yet, or is this currently happening? He's in Europe still.
It's happening right now. He comes back on Monday.
Okay. So then the thing is, the bow on that story will be if he walks in, he's like, "Oh, you're so right. All of this is perfect."
Which he
Right?
will,
Which
Yes.
he will. Exactly.
because he'll see the
Exactly.
full vision.
Yeah.
Partial installs are never pretty.
No. Right. And that's what you're going to say the next time somebody insists. You're going to be like, "Listen, this is how it goes. Every person I've showed it piecemeal hasn't liked it. And then when they walked in and seen the finished thing, they've liked it. So we're going to avoid that whole not liking it part for you. That whole agita part where you're 100% sure you hired the wrong designer and I have no idea what I'm doing. I'm 100% sure I'm the right designer. I'm 100% sure of what I'm doing. And you're going to sit on it for a hot second. Right.
Yeah.
So of course, that's how you say it in inside voice. You'll all figure out a nice way to say it in outside
That's
voice.
what you say on the trampoline as you're
Yeah.
bouncing up and down.
Now you have a story to tell. You don't have to do the
That's it.
cautionary tale
No.
or take a hard line. You tell the story. I had this guy. He was
That's
in
right.
Europe. He
That's
lost
right.
faith. He was in fear mode, you know?
And
Yeah.
record it.
Yeah.
Have a video going of when
Of him being in love,
yes,
right?
of when he walks in and he goes, "Wow!" Just like on
Yeah.
HGTV.
Yeah.
But you know what, Antonio? That's not a bad idea because for the super ridiculously resistant future client, you could also keep a screenshot of the texts that are like, hate it, beat it at that. And then and this is the actual reaction. So if you want this middle agita part for you, okay, go hire a different designer. But I've learned the actual best path for both me and you. And that's
Yeah.
for you not to see anything until I'm done. Go
Yeah.
away.
But I think also too, I agree 100%, but I think that like all three of these like lessons, right? These big life, small moments, they all add up and they all accumulate to something. And
Yeah.
then we're able to then create new marketing material. We're able to have those conversations differently to be able to say, you know what? We've all been down a road before. Let me tell you about this one. And I have this conversation because I feel like it's really, really important because I had a client that was all in, but then all of a sudden talked to their accountant and was all the way out.
Right.
Let me share how that made me feel. And then you put the human part back into it. And I think that all of these examples to everyone that's listening, I think we're all probably nodding our head and are like, oh, okay, yeah, that makes sense. Oh, yeah, I felt that too. Oh, that one really hit home, right? And I think then it allows us to just be bigger, better, and greater.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I agree. The one thing where I'd like to go now before we wrap up is, it's funny because I'll share my example and then see if it triggers any ideas for you guys, is recognizing so there's resilience in these life moments, these resilience in these stomach punch moments.
Yeah.
But I think resilience also is in the day to day. It's not a significant big moment. And what I find that I more get caught unawares, but I've learned that I have a tell. So I literally have a tell and I recognize the tell. And when I recognize the tell, I'm like, girl, you need to do something. And so here's my own personal tell that I've observed over the years. And so now the second it happens, I'm like, so it can be the most neutral thing that's happening. It could be, I'm coming in the back door, which requires a key, and then the door practically never shuts all the way itself. And it's a shared office space in the back. So the door has to be locked, right? And I've got, my work bag on one shoulder. I've got all my podcasting, mic on another shoulder. I've got a water bottle in my hand. Maybe I've got a yogurt floating off my damn forehead or something, right? And I will be maneuvering that door, and one thing or all things will drop on the floor. Now, that can happen 15 times a month that I drop something. But every once in a while, whether I drop one thing or four things, my brain goes from 0 to 60. I'll be like, and I just feel that. I don't say anything. I'm standing by myself at the door, or I'm carrying something up the stairs or whatever it is. But it's like the second that I have a disproportionate reaction to something that happens fairly regularly, which is dropping something while I'm carrying too many things, it's like my brain goes, oh, where are you at now? What's happening? Why are you at 0 to 60 on a simple thing? And then I got to sit down and I got to come in and I got to go, okay, let's look at the calendar. I get that you have a lot of capacity, but you know what? You're at the top level. What needs to come out? Or I have to say, is this because you've got something on your brain that you needed to have done, and you've not done it today, you've not done it yesterday, you've not done it the day before? Hey, girl, it's a hard thing to do, but sit down and do it because it's affecting other stuff. So this is my poker tell to myself. When a normal event, I have a disproportionate, and even nobody sees it. It's an internal disproportionate reaction to a normal event. So, and then I have to go into mode of picking apart. Why am I having a disproportionate? Is it, like I said, I've been putting something off, or I'm not facing a conversation, or I've just got too much on my plate? I have to then do the investigation of what's happened. It could be as simple as, you haven't gone for a walk in 3 days, girl. Like, stop. Like, life isn't that darn busy, right? So do any of you have something that you recognize? To me, it's like a test. It's actually a test of your resilience. Normally, it doesn't take a whole lot of resilience to drop a package and pick it up. But there's a moment where it takes a whole heck of a lot of resilience to drop a package. So do any of you have those types of things in your daily recognizing, and what's your practice for getting back into balance, I guess, is the question and the heart of it. Sandra, I know you have to.
I was going to say, I'd love to take this one. Well, so number one, how self-aware that you catch it. Like, I love that. And that you and you're like, oh, there's a disproportionate reaction. Like, that is self-awareness. That is very cool. And I also wanted to say before, like, how lucky are you that your mother and your aunt taught you about the energy and the life lessons. And if you're going to, like, I had to go find and seek out and try out a whole bunch of different coaches, therapists, whatever you want to call my person, to finally get that lesson.
Your people, not person.
Yes.
Your people.
Not people. There's there's more way more than one.
There's way more than one on this
side.
It's
like a tribe of healers. So for me, I know, like, when I look at, I hit overwhelm, and I don't use that word lightly, and I don't like to overuse it. But if that starts creeping into my feelings, then I know I'm in that boat. And what I need to do is I need to sit down, I need to do my mantra, I need to light my candles and my incense, I need to do a meditation. And most importantly, when I'm at that point, I need to do free writing, like journaling. So morning pages, if anybody's read The Artist's Way.
Yep.
Amazing book, especially if you are not so self-aware, but you find yourself at your limits, at your max. My old tell used to be that I would just cancel stuff. Like, I would wake up in the morning and I'd be like, I cannot do this day. This is cuckoo. Like, I don't know who thought I was freaking Wonder Woman, but how am I supposed to do this and then this and then this and then this and this? And I would just look at my assistant and say, cancel the day. And they'd be like, we can't cancel the day.
Somebody waited for that appointment for 6 months.
Mom, this day took to put together. And I would get talked off the ledge, but like that idea of I can't do this day, right? Mm-hmm. And like that is, so now I don't get there because I just do the daily practice of the mantra and the meditation. So that it's not an emergency, it is the baseline. Mm-hmm. And then honestly, the writing is so huge. So to sit down and have a notebook and a pen that you love and to write 3 pages a day, and it is free writing. And this is where, Lou, you're going to hear that thing that you haven't done,
Yes.
that feeling that the thing that's annoying you, the little voice that hasn't been listened to and needs to be heard.
Right.
This, because no one else is reading it, you don't even go back and read it unless you feel like it. It
Sure.
just needs to come out. And it's like it's giving your subconscious
Permission.
your full attention, permission,
Yeah,
right? A
permission.
voice. Mhm.
Interesting. Interesting. How about you guys? What do you have? How do you manage, that overwhelm and, feeling of at the top of your, limits there?
So I'll say there are certain words that are no longer in my vocabulary, and one of them is overwhelm. I also do not like the word pivot. I twirl. So you can imagine that, right? So, and I've even gotten other friends now to talk about twirling, not pivoting. But I used to go absolutely bonkers when any of our employees made mistakes. And I mean, we're talking.
And you got a lot of employees.
Yeah,
There's a lot
yeah,
of
yeah, yeah.
opportunity, a lot of humans involved.
And we're not just talking little mistakes. Now, I think the biggest one was recently when one of our plumbing subcontractor didn't do something right, and we were almost done with his job. I mean, this just happened within the last month or so, and he flooded the house. And
Nice.
brand new wood floors had just been put down. So, of course, he didn't have the money to replace all of it. And again, we go back to our team, right? And I just went to him. I said, "Are you handling it?" And he said, "Yes." I said, "Do I need to worry about this?" He said, "No." I said, "Okay, what are we doing now to make sure this doesn't happen again?" And we went through all of that. And whereas before, I probably would have called the plumber, I would have been all over his butt. I would have been all over my employees. I mean, like watching them like a hawk. I would have gotten
Yeah.
the number of the insurance company that, our subs insurance company. I would have been over them like white on rice. But now that we've got these systems and everything in place, I'm like, okay, everything can be fixed. Now,
Yeah.
sometimes it takes a little bit more money, which I am not happy about at all. But, everything can be fixed. And that's the way that you just have to look at it, because there is no other way to look at it. Just like the lady that gave you the gut punch, you fix that from ever happening again, Sandra.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
and Lou, when you get mad now, you've got trampolines in all the places that you live, and you go out there and jump on those. So
I love that you have one at every location.
I know,
Oh, yeah.
it's hilarious.
We need an endorsement
Yeah.
deal.
And so now, Antonio, I can't wait to hear what you do.
That's right. That's right. But I have to just say, sometimes it takes more money.
The pitch in her voice just is like perfect. I mean, listen, like that mental health, struggle and walking that fine line and, eliminating the imposter syndrome and being able to tell yourself that you're worthy, right? And I think that the more work that you continue to do on yourself, like the spiral doesn't look so out of control. Like I might be twirling some days, which is closer to spiraling for me. But, like for me, like I feel like I am the master of being able to pivot. I use the word pivot. I don't use the word overwhelm so much, but I can acknowledge when the overwhelm is happening. And my meditation practice has really been like so key and so critical for me to stay as like grounded and balanced, because I think when you're entering into a luxury space, I grew up, middle class. I didn't even know a designer was a possibility. Nobody was hiring a designer. And so it's just like now I'm standing in the middle of the Hamptons, but I'm like getting my handed to me via text message, and I'm trying to have to do all of the things, but I'm able to come back to center a little faster. And sometimes some of my tells, it's actually kind of like weird, but I can feel it happening in my body. It's like a visceral thing. Like my ears get hot. Like, so like my ears feel hot and I'm like, oh, it's happening. And I'm like, okay. And then like I have an internal conversation and it happens faster. I'm like, did you have lunch today? The smoothie doesn't count.
Yes.
Okay. Like, I'm able to say, well, is there 5 things that the little voice inside of me is telling me I should have done that I didn't do? And I'm able to start to hold myself a little bit more accountable and quicker. But that stillness, being able to sit in that quiet, the older I get, the more I find myself in my car. I call it the office on wheels. It's like where all of a sudden I'm like, wow, I've driven for 2 hours and there's no radio on, there's no
Yes.
podcast. It's just
Oh,
me
huge.
and my thoughts. And I'm able to like really face those and face them a little bit more effortlessly and give myself a little bit more grace. And then some of my mantra that I've been saying for years is there's two. One, I'm a firm believer that God has already given me the tools in my tool belt to handle whatever is in front of me. There's nothing that is being brought to me or in front of me if it's not for a lesson or something that I can't handle, that wasn't meant for me for some reason, good, bad, or indifferent. And then my follow up to that is that there is power in my purpose. And if I can
Mm.
identify the purpose, I already know that I'm operating in my power. And in return, I'm able to help others be the light, be the joy. And I'm able to then center myself, come back to my power and my purpose. And my final thought is always then the deep breath. And then I say, just keep swimming. So it's just like Dory from Finding Nemo. It's like my little mascot, and it's probably like over my shoulder. Like sometimes I can close my eyes and I can just see it. And it's just, you think of the vastness of the ocean. You think of them in that journey of trying to find the next thing. And for me, I feel like we're in the vastness. We're infinite possibilities like every single day. And if I know that there's power in my purpose, I can find my stillness. And in return, I'm able to just keep swimming. And then my ears get a little cooler and they're no longer hot. And I can get out of the car. And I feel like some days I can just then tackle the world. And then there are other days where I just might need to eat some chicken nuggets and keep it moving.
I love that. I love that. Robin, you wanted to add to that?
Yeah, and I want to say too, I think that it is a huge part of it is surrounding yourself with people that are positive, right?
Yeah.
You do not need to have those people in your life like with Sandra or with you, Antonio, when you called Lou and was telling her you specifically said you wanted somebody to giggle with you, you wanted
Yes.
somebody to laugh with you over the situation, not complain with you over the
Right.
situation. So
Mm-mm.
you have to find people that are there, that are
Yeah.
uber positive, that can tell you that, something, you're going to make this. What can we do? How can I help you? And how can I get you through this?
Yeah.
What are you going to do? And I think my sharing and as open as what I am, that has been so fantastic and helping me, because when I share, what was it, almost a year and a half ago when I had my knee replaced, everybody
Mm.
was so shocked that the next day I was up and walking. No pain, no cane, no walker, no nothing. And they were, huh?
If they know you, they're not surprised.
I'm telling you, we need t-shirts made with this hashtag.
You can't stop Robin.
Right.
But it's
Oh,
it's all about the mindset, right? And when
Yeah.
sure.
you connect
Yeah.
with people that have your mindset, there is
Yeah.
nothing, and let me repeat that, there is nothing that you can't do.
Yeah.
Nothing.
I
Yeah.
love it.
I love that.
I
And
love
sometimes
it.
the magic's in the vulnerability, right? Like just think of like the four of us just sharing vulnerably our stories. And I really just hope that whoever's listening, right? Like it encourages them to be a little bit more vulnerable because I really think that's like the game changer. Like once you can tap into that level of vulnerability, like the world and like I said, your infinite possibilities are
Yeah.
really right there for you. But some of it really starts with the vulnerability.
That's how we connect, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Being
agree.
an
Yeah.
open
Yeah.
Yeah.
book.
Well, and the thing is, it's kind of the whole point of the mechanism of Overheard. It's, look, these are people that you admire. These are people that you see at markets, at panels, that are on Zooms, and they're industry leaders. But garden variety humans, folks, garden variety humans with
Yeah,
big trials and little trials, and getting up every day and just doing it. I just think, and it doesn't escape. We don't any of us escape it. Like seriously, we don't any of us escape it.
no,
And I think it's awesome because it is understanding that somebody has had something unimaginable that they've gone through, and you just like, oh, she just seems or he just seems like everything's easy, and
yeah.
it's like, no,
But just
no.
think of like what you said, like garden variety human. I think of a garden, right? And it's just as like to have, I forget, I'm going to butcher it if it was Audrey Hepburn who said like that you to believe in tomorrow is to water the garden.
Yeah,
And, I just think it's so beautiful because then as your tribe might, expand and you continue to water, and then all of a sudden you look up and now there's 10 people that understand you, or five more people that gravitate towards your blossom or your bloom, or then you're dropping. I just think that the garden analogy is just so beautiful because when you're able to then water it, you really are showing that you've got the faith that tomorrow is going to be another day.
yeah.
It's going to be excellent. And together we're in this garden trying to blossom, to bloom, to figure it out.
Yeah, I love that. I love it. See, when I always say it all the time, garden variety human, I love that interpretation, what you just said. I've never thought of it in that way. The way it hits me, and the reason why I say it is because one hand, when you look at a garden, whether it's filled with daisies and there's a section with the daisies and there's a section with, marigolds, and I don't know the names of flowers. It's not my thing, right?
You're
But
doing good.
yeah, yeah, right. But it's like when you look at the whole thing and all of the blooms, it's like one doesn't really feel very different than the other. It's like there's a daisy, there's another one, there's a marigold, there's another one. But individually, they are all very different. It's like the snowflakes, it's like all the things. It's like individually there is that one flower had to like fight for that spot of soil and that inch of sun to get 2 inches higher, right? And maybe their petals are just a little bit different, even though they're kind of all the same. And
Yeah,
so for me, a garden variety human is, yes, on one level, we're all struggling and we're all succeeding and we're all doing it, all the doing. But individually, we're all doing it differently. And
sure.
that difference is valuable and worthwhile for
Yeah.
each of us to show up and do it our way,
Yeah,
right?
and sometimes you feel like that random plant that's growing out of the side of a rock on the side of the mountain that you're like, wait, how did that get there, right?
Or the
Sometimes
weed.
you,
It's like
or
sometimes
or
you're
the
the
weed.
noisy weed. Come
Yeah,
on, I'm gonna show up here today.
and sometimes it's beautiful and sometimes it's isolating, but you just aim to end up back in the garden.
That's it. That's it. Awesome. Awesome. It almost feels like Robin and Antonio shared some final thoughts. Sandra, I don't want to not give you an opportunity to wrap it up too, because I feel like they both did it for themselves so nicely. Any thoughts from you?
I think my big wrap up with resiliency is that being an entrepreneur takes daily courage.
Mhm.
And it's not just courage in the face of massive catastrophe or a punch to the gut or a text before coffee. It's resiliency to say, we're going to review pipeline, we're going to we're going to make our numbers, we're going to take on that office space, we're going to get published. It's to set goals and put ourselves out there, and that is 101 of entrepreneurship, right? We are putting ourselves out there, and that in and of itself, beyond all the drama and all the stuff, that takes daily courage to just put on the bootstraps and get out there and do it again.
Exactly. Exactly. Well, I knew that you guys were three superior individuals to have this conversation with, that you'd all have a different perspective, but also all have a very valuable point of view that each one of us has at one point in our lives are going to hit these different moments of test. And so thank you so much for showing up, for doing this with me, for being vulnerable, and for sharing your stories with all of us. I appreciate all of you so much.
Luann, we can't thank you enough for you being you, for having us and hosting us today.
Yes, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And it was so great to learn how the rest of you have, gone through your resiliency and that Lou has a tell.
Truly. Thank you so much. This has been a gift. Such an
Yeah.
honor to be here.
Yeah. Go out
Sometimes,
and be resilient.
sometimes if you're live with me, you might see that tell, on my 10th or 11th day of a speaking tour. And all of a sudden you'll just like, ooh, that's a little crazy over there. And I'm like, yep, just trying to lock it down. Just trying to lock it down. All right, guys,
Uh,
thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.